I'm
Yeah.
really curious about, I think that's something I might ask you about for how you prep for nationals and what you get into, but I'm just also curious about like the head game as well. So I'm gonna have that question on the back burner because I am genuinely so curious about it. But yeah, so yoke, farmer's walk, and you said sandbag?
Yeah, sandbags. So um they all of those events are going to be in the upcoming show, like the
Yeah.
nationals. So I'm just training them. Like today was lighter yoke because last week was very heavy yoke and it kind of screwed up the rest of the workout because my body was so trashed afterwards. And
Okay.
then this week is lighter yoke, heavier sandbags, heavier farmers walks. So kind of
Mm,
when you're doing this much heavy stuff, like my joints and bones and frame is only so big being my size. So doing like stepping up a weight class and doing the heavier weights, we kind of have to like almost like hopscotch through like light and heavy movements for the week and be like, one week we're going to deadlift heavy and do something else heavy. And then the next week we're going to go deadlift light and whatever that was light. And then we'll do other things heavy instead because it's just too much pressure on my joints, my skeletal system right now to do it
mm.
all in all the time.
Love the
Oh,
yawn.
okay.
I'll take a big, beautiful stretch too. I think that's necessary. Mm. Mm. I am so looking forward to this. Yeah, hell
Oh, me
yeah.
too. I'm excited.
Hi, everyone. You're tuning in to the Perfectly Powerfully You podcast, a space of epic positivity, radical self expression, and transformational growth. Join me in celebrating this beautiful thing we call life with even greater ease, flow, and authenticity. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We have our tea today. Tyson, do you have tea today? Yes, you do have tea, proper English tea with both
Yes,
milk and sugar.
correct.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Perfectly Powerfully You podcast. I'm your host, Nikita, and I trust, hope, and expect you all are having a wonderful day. I am very much looking forward to this podcast. If you guys have checked out the title of this video, you probably know that we are with Canada's middleweight champion, Tyson Delay, and also someone that I have come to know more recently in the past few months and more excited to know in the next few years as someone who's becoming more and more a part of who I love to call family. And Tyson, not only are you a world record breaker, we're going to get into that more because as someone who, again, in just the past few months of getting to know you, there is so much about you that I think really stands not only the test of time, discipline, and consistency, but also someone who really hones in on what I know to be mental health, physical health, and also
Hmm.
social well-being. And so,
Yeah.
as someone who is involved now in strongman, and that's how I've come to know you, could you please tell the lovely folks who do not know who you are a little bit more about you? Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, my name is Tyson Delay, and I grew up in the boonies. I'm now moved into a slightly larger village than the one I grew up in. I'm 31 years old. I compete in the sport of strongman, both as an athlete and I'm also involved as a coach. I have a regular day job as a landscaper and a trucker, and I love my life. I love gardening, eating, hanging out with my dog, climbing mountains, and picking up ridiculously heavy things.
Yes. Ridiculously heavy, I think, is quite the understatement. Could you tell a little bit about more about what strongman is and how you got involved with it?
Yes, absolutely. So the sport of strongman is it's kind of seen as the ultimate test of strength and athletic ability together. So like if you want to see absolute strength in a single lift, you go to powerlifting. If you want to see absolute athleticism, you go to CrossFit. There's obviously those two things. Now, strongman is somewhere in between. It's like at one point you could be deadlifting ridiculous amounts of weight, which is a static movement, but in the next instant you could be running, literally sprinting with ridiculously heavy sandbags or farmers walks or a yoke. So Usually, a competition setup is you have between 5 and 8 events, which are chosen from amongst over 50 events that we now have in the world of strongman. A lot of them are based historically on like old feats of strength in like ancient Scotland or Japan. Some of them are like old beer hall lifting feats of strength. Some of them are very, very flashy and showy. I've pulled semi trucks. I've deadlifted cars. I've lifted rocks that weigh more than I do. I've lifted giant oak trees over my head. I've picked up people, like literally lifted people for presentations and stuff, like over my head. And there's just an awful lot about it. But what was so alluring to me was that it was about real world strength that you could use in and out of the gym. And growing up in, out in the woods and the mountains, working a very physical job, and just growing up, tossing hay bales, lifting rocks, lifting giant pieces of firewood. To me, if you're in the gym and you're bodybuilding, great. That's good muscle, but I'm not really here to be part of a fashion show. I want to be the most useful, functional human being possible. And so I figure, what's the use of being super strong if you can't pick something up and move with it? And I actually stumbled across strongman by accident. So
Hmm.
once I found the sport, I got involved with it, realized I was really, really, really bad at it, and then and said, screw it, I don't care. I'm still going to do it because it's so much fun. And me being me, my whole mentality is you're either in or you're out.
Hmm.
And so I just went in 100%. And here we are almost 10 years later as the Canadian champion.
Heck yeah, you are the Canadian champion. I want to do air five for
Yeah,
that one for being so disciplined.
thank you.
Heck yeah. So tell me a little bit more because you said you're either in or you're out. And I think that's a very interesting mentality to have, especially when at the very beginning of this, you said you sucked at it. And for some
Mhm,
people, when they suck at something, that might be a really easy trigger for people to give up because,
mhm.
I mean, if you suck at it, why would you want to continue? But you also
Yeah.
mentioned that you had so much fun doing it. Can you tell me a little
Mhm.
bit more about what kept you going?
Yeah. Yeah. So first off, I think a lot of this has to do with my childhood. So when I was growing up, I was really, really sickly. We didn't know why at the time, but I had a lot of dietary problems that we didn't know about.
Hmm.
So I was very underweight. I was extremely skinny. I was weak. I was sick all the time. And we grew up like a very healthy life, but my body just didn't feel good. I was always tired. I was exhausted. And so everything I ever did, sports wise, really sucked. Like
Hmm.
I was terrible at soccer for almost 4 years. And then eventually I got good at soccer, good to the point of like I had guys who had connections with like pro soccer teams who were like, hey, like we can help you out if you're interested. We can get you involved to go try out for these pro teams. And then, martial arts was another thing. So I was involved with in martial arts from a very young age, horrible for 4 years. And
Hmm.
then after that, I found that my technique reached a point where I got very, very good. And all of a sudden now I'm very, very good at martial art. Well, that specific one, I did jujitsu mostly. Dabbled a little bit in wrestling and kung fu and boxing as well, but mostly jujitsu. But the whole story of my sports life was I really struggled in the beginning. I was never naturally good at anything.
Hmm.
And that came to video games, that came to board games, that came to anything competitive, whether it was sports or not. I was never naturally good at it. So for my mindset, I was thinking, okay, I want to be involved in weightlifting. I want to be involved in weightlifting in a functional way. And I looked at the three top weightlifting disciplines that I respected. And so powerlifting is completely useless for real world stuff. When you look at the fact that most powerlifters have no endurance and they cannot move. So there's no
Hmm.
multi-plane strength, only single plane strength straight up and down. As soon as you get them out of that balance box, they're useless. Not useless, but they're very prone to injury.
Hmm.
So I was like, I was already involved in powerlifting and figured, well, I'm horrible at this. And
Hmm.
there's no way for me to get better inside of 10 years because I need 10 years to accumulate static strength
Hmm.
or close to it. That was my guess anyway, from all the math that I'd done and the research I'd done. And I looked at CrossFit, and CrossFit has an outrageously high injury rate, way higher than just about any other sport. I'm like, I'm naturally I'd be better at CrossFit because
Hmm.
I'm fairly athletic at this point. I was 23, I think. So I'm like already very naturally athletic because I've been doing sports my whole life. I was the right size, is about 176 pounds, somewhere in there. And I was not very strong, but I was decently strong for like a normal human being at that point. And CrossFitters, classically, they don't have to be the strongest guys. They just have to be extremely athletic. But the injury
Mm.
rate kind of kept me out of it. I was like, okay, that doesn't really appeal to me. Also, I really wanted to be bigger because I was always a really small guy.
Hmm.
Now, strongman was very alluring to me because it's like, well, now you get to be strong like a powerlifter. You get to be fast and well conditioned, not as much as a CrossFitter, but kind of like a CrossFitter. So it's useful. And there's lots of multiple weight classes. So I could grow into bigger weight classes and I could become a much bigger guy, which is what I really wanted to do. Because I mean, like at the base, bottom line, caveman brain that I operate under, I'm like, if somebody tries to attack my family, I need to be a big, burly caveman so I can kill whoever it is and save my family's life.
Mm-hmm.
And if an animal were to attack my family, I need to be big and strong enough that I can fight it off with my bare hands. That was my silly caveman brain. That's what goes on in there. So,
Mm-hmm. I love
but
that. I would not say it's
yeah.
silly caveman brain, but I do love that you bring it up. You're like, yo, if I can be better, because it sounds like I know you to be someone who absolutely puts family first. And I love that not only did you
Yes.
do something very, it seems mindful and practical with the level of longevity that you wish to have with your body, which I completely respect as someone you're like,
Hmm.
I don't just want to look good, which you do, but I want
Yeah.
to
Thank you.
use this strength to um, basically be able to do the things that I want to do for a really long time. And something that
Hmm.
I picked out is that you're someone that not only are you're in it or you're not, but you also
Hmm.
mentioned doing a lot of research. And so,
Yeah.
as someone who, when you said that you kind of came into strongman on accident,
Yeah.
where did all this research come from? And did you know from the very beginning that this was going to be a long-term commitment? And how did that fold into your daily habits to allow it to be like who you are today? Because this isn't like as someone who sucked in the beginning, who
Yeah.
is absolutely like excellent at it now.
Hmm.
How does that involve from all the research you've done, but also the daily habits that accumulate over time?
Yeah. So from the research I did, very heavy lifting done intelligently is very good for your bone structure. So it builds thicker, heavier bones, thicker, heavier tendons. And heavy lifting in general builds very lean muscle tissue, which is all very healthy for you. So, like if you put me next to another guy who's the same weight as me, if he does bodybuilding, which is funny, I have a picture comparison with a friend of mine named Shane. Shout out to Shane. He's awesome. But him and I right now are about 5 pound difference, and he looks almost twice as big as me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
But we're like completely different creatures because he does bodybuilding and I do what I do.
hmm, do you know
Yeah.
why like I'm just curious now about like physique because I do know Shane and I've seen him at No Limits Fitness in Kamloops.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah. He's a big dude.
he's a big dude and you're saying there's only a
He,
five
he looks
pound difference?
massive.
He
Yeah, at
looks
this current moment.
massive.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
so he's about 6'2". I'm about 5'9". And
yeah.
if you put us beside each other, like his biceps look almost twice the size of mine. His legs and glutes are humongous. His back is very wide.
Mm.
Like, yeah, but it's bodybuilding muscle, which is nowhere near as dense. And then his skeletal structure is it though it's more dense than your average human being, it's much less dense than my own. My skeletal structure is apparently, due to the scans that we've done and the doctors I've talked to, my skeletal structure is about 2 times as dense as it should be.
Oh.
So,
That is
yeah,
very, very cool. And so, thank you,
yeah,
honestly, shout out to technology for being able to allow us to view that. And so,
yeah.
as someone who is like coming into this, because it's something that after seeing you and Alina and being a part of that only for like one competition, just seeing everyone very, very inspired and something that
Mhm.
I'm learning to step into myself in terms of bone density, what does that do you know how that forms as you're lifting heavier weights? Is it something that actually you tell me what is the
Yeah,
what happens when you're lifting heavier and why are your bones denser than
yeah.
Shane's, who also lifts very heavy?
Yeah. So here's the breakdown firstly is well, and I guess a quick throwback because part of the research I was doing was for longevity's sake. So bone density is one of the first things that starts going in people as they age.
Hmm.
Now, if you don't uh, put your body under intensive impact, whether it's jumping or sprinting or like heavy lifting, your bone density does break down over time as you become, as like your hormone levels drop as you get
Hmm.
older, and your muscle density starts to drop as you get older because of all that stuff breaking down and not being used as much. So I was like, okay, this sport's good for longevity because bone density, muscle density will be very thick. And I guess a quick before we jump into the Shane and the muscle density or bone density part, we're going to also jump onto the fact that most of the guys in strongman that I know and that I was talking to and competing with at the time had families. And I'm like, okay, if you look at most bodybuilders, they're divorced or they don't have very successful relationships. If you look at most powerlifters, it's depending on whether you're in the which federation, some are much more prone to not being in relationships than others. And I'm like, I want a family, I want a wife. There's a lot of big community in this sport with people who have successful family lives. I want to be able to do that. So it's not as time intensive as things like CrossFit or other sports, and it's more practical than things like powerlifting and bodybuilding. So,
Hmm.
anyway, so there's that aspect. But going into the bone density part, so yes, Shane lifts very heavy because he's a super strong guy. Like
Hmm.
anybody who walks into the gym and sees Shane lifting, first they're gonna be like, "Damn, that's a big dude," and secondly, "Wow, he's super strong."
Hmm.
Um, I lift exponentially much more.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah,
Well,
and that's
someone who's
just the way I've trained.
deadlifting cars.
Yeah. That's just what I do. Like to put it into perspective, there was a bodybuilder living here in Williams Lake a couple years ago. Him and I were the exact same weight. Him and I
Hmm.
were the exact same height, and he had a very Shane-esque build. Like his build was very much like Shane. Massive shoulders, huge biceps, big chest, wide back. Like if him and I stood side by side, very similar thing with Shane and I. Like I looked much smaller. His max deadlift was 450 pounds,
Hmm.
which is an excellent max deadlift.
Totally.
Like there's not a lot of guys who can do that. So if you put 450 pounds in the bar, I could legitimately go and do 20 reps with it. And then I
Impressive.
could take a 5 minute break and I could probably do it for another 20 reps. Like,
Well, for those who also are just getting to know Tyson Delay, your world record breaking deadlift was 1,000 pounds.
mhm.
Am I correct?
Yeah, it was a silver dollar deadlift. I weighed in 198 pounds and I deadlifted 1,008. Yeah,
1,008 pounds. Yo,
yeah.
for I'm just like I couldn't even fathom that at this point in time, but I just want to also like just pause here and really acknowledge that there are many people out there who have limiting beliefs about what they are able to achieve. And I just want to really put it here that the when you first started, did you ever think that you would be able to confidently max deadlift 1,000 pounds? Like, where did this goal come from, and how did you build up to this?
So, yeah. Firstly, I want to explain the bone density thing, and then we can jump into that part because then we can put the bone density thing to bed. Is
Let's do
that
it.
fair?
Let's do it.
Okay. So when you safely, and I'm going to say safely, compress your spine, it sends signals to the brain and says, I don't know what's going on, but we need to reinforce the structure
Hmm.
because we're getting crushed down here. So when you do a lot of heavy lifting, like what I do with safe spinal compression,
Mm.
because that's what we try to do is play the, I very intelligent training to not get injured. But anyway, safe spinal compression. So that sends signals to the brain, which says we need to allocate nutrients and energy and blood to the bones to make them thicker and denser so they don't break. And we need to allocate muscle to these areas to protect said joints. And there's
Mm.
specific workouts you can do to help with that. But at the end of the day, the more balanced your joints are, the stronger your bones are, the better off you're going to be. And that happens when you put your body under safe spinal compression. It reinforces the whole system. Like it massively boosts growth hormone and testosterone. and just makes your body explode with new cells.
Wow.
So,
Okay,
yeah,
so I'm just
yeah,
we are going to get into the the mental workaround for you lifting 1,000. However, I want to
yeah.
insert this question. What is safe spinal compression?
So safe spinal compression is like there's a lot of times when people are like, oh, like have you ever had a bulge disc? Have you ever like really seriously hurt your back? I'm like, no, no, because if my form starts to break down, I generally just put the weight down.
Hmm.
So I know when my form is breaking because I've worked extremely hard to have good form, knowing that I need a very long amount of time to get strong, knowing I need to stay healthy, knowing that I'd like to be a mobile old man.
Hmm.
I've worked very hard to have good form, brace properly so my core is, tight and my back is safe. But putting your body under safe spinal compression is saying, hey, my limit's here. I'm not going to exceed that unless I absolutely have to and we prepped for it. And it's
Hmm.
only going to be once in a while. So most people train, I shouldn't say most people. So myself, I'm actually going to use myself as an example. I train way, way, way too hard unless I'm being smart. So before I had all the knowledge that I currently have, before I did all the research, before I hired an intelligent coach, I was not training intelligently. I was just like, I will work harder than anyone else. I will bury them with my work ethic, which not coupled with intelligence is not going to work. Coupled with intelligence does work. But for me, I would, if I was actually naturally strong, I would have been one of those guys that probably blew his back apart in the first year or two of lifting. But
Hmm.
luckily, God made me really friggin' weak in the beginning. And it took me years to get strong enough to hurt myself. And by then, I realized that I needed time and that I was, had to make sure my form was good. So my form is
Hmm.
very, very good. If you're overreaching with your weights all the time and exhausting your body and breaking it down too much, and then also compromising your form, that's when you start getting major back injuries and having unsafe spinal compression.
Hmm. Okay. I respect that you were so weak in the beginning, but you knew that you needed the time. And that really stood out to
Mm-hmm.
me when you mentioned that, is that you have the work ethic and drive. And that's something I've
Mm-hmm.
come to know about you, even in the short time that we've gotten to know each other. There's this intensity, but this discipline and consistency that is very much a
Mm-hmm.
part of your daily life that I'm sure has been cultivated from the time you were a wee child. But I also
Yeah.
love that you were able to be humble enough to say, yo, I know that I'm gonna get there, but I want to do it in a way that's not only going to create the longevity and create the strong foundation for my body, while also knowing that I don't need to be there right now, but I know that I will
Mm-hmm.
get there. And so,
Yeah.
coupling this and transitioning and segueing into deadlifting 1,008 pounds. Was
Yes.
this something that you strived for in the beginning? When did this goal arise for you as someone who considered themselves very weak in the beginning?
So the world record was an accident.
Okay, go on. An
Yeah.
accident.
Okay. 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 So I'm a huge fan of training glutes as a male. I think men should train glutes really, really hard. So anybody who's seen my butt knows I'm packing an absolute dump truck for a skinny white boy.
Yeah, okay.
So I used to have a back with a crack. Now I've got a dump truck. Okay, like I should have a backup beeper on that thing, and
Yeah.
it's nowhere near as juicy as it was when I was powerlifting. But anyways, moving on. When you're looking at a deadlift, there's the portion below the knees, and there's the portion above the knees. Now, above the knees, if you don't have strong glutes, you're screwed.
Mm,
So for me, I can I have a hard time getting the bar over my knees, but the moment it's over my knees, I can lock out literally 1,000 pounds. Now,
mm,
there's a lift called the silver dollar deadlift. Now, it's an 18-inch pull. That 18 inches is about 2 or 3 inches below my knees. Now, the heavier the weight on the bar, the more the bar bends. So by the time I pull with this silver dollar deadlift, by the time I pull the slack out of the bar, it's already coming over my knees and I can lock it out. So I was doing some casual training with it just for fun. Like I was like, hey, let's do this. My coach had it in my programming. I bought these silver dollar implements because I wanted to try it out. Um, And I had something really, really bad happen. And I was like, hey, coach, I'm going to do something stupid with training. And he goes, good, don't hurt yourself. And I was like, okay, sweet. So I loaded 800 pounds on the bar. I warmed up to it, obviously. Like I took videos of every single lift. So I started with one plate, ended up with a lot more than one plate. But anyway, worked my way from about 155 pounds all the way up to 800 pounds. And it flew. And I was like, okay, let's put on 900 pounds. And it flew. It's like, already, let's try 1,000 pounds. And I pulled it. And I was like, well, okay, I feel a lot better now. Like, this thing that made me super sad and upset is, and I'm not big on emotional lifting, but I think it's really helpful sometimes. But it was like this thing that made me really sad and upset is slightly less upsetting because I just pulled this big, huge weight and I feel like a big man. So, mental health restored for a short time. And I sent the videos to my coach and he goes, oh, shit, you lifted 1,000 pounds. I was like, yep. He goes, do you know what the world record is for your weight class right now? I was like, no. And he goes, here's a Google search, 837 pounds. And I was like,
Oh,
well, shit, I just broke the world record in my friggin' garage. So next thing my coach sends me a thing with a competition down on the coast that says there's a silver dollar deadlift at this competition. You want to go do it? And I was like, yep, I'm signing up right now. So I prepped for it, went down there, and I got a hold of the World Deadlift Council to make it official and contacted them and then paid for the fees so I could do an official deadlift. I, showed them the weigh-ins and everything that were all under official Strongman Corp systems, and then continued to go into the competition. So I lifted 840, which broke the world record by 3 pounds. Then I lifted 920 and then went on to lift 1,008 pounds to break the world record by, I think, 130 something.
oh
So,
my
yeah,
goodness. Yo, another air
yeah.
five for that one. You're a freaking rock
Thank you.
star. So, oh, I just want to also acknowledge, okay, so something that stood out when you said that was emotional lifting. What do
Yeah.
you consider emotional lifting? And also, in conjunction with this, what is emotional lifting and how did you prep? And was this in one session from 155 all the way up to 1,000? Was this in one set?
Yeah. Not one set, but it's like I pulled the 155, went and grabbed more plates, threw it on the bar, took a second to sit down, went and pulled the whatever it was, 235, threw a couple more plates on, went and sat down, 315 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
sat down, took a minute. So it was like within half an hour, I went from 150 to 1,002 pounds in my garage.
Oh, wow. And that's taken, so
Yeah.
how many years? We're gonna get into the emotional lifting because I'm still curious about that. But how many
Yeah.
years did it take you to go from, let's just say like 155 all the way up to 1,000? Because you've been doing, I heard martial arts, and am I right? You did
Mhm.
soccer, and did I also hear kung fu? Is kung fu in there as well?
Yep, yep, I did. I dabbled in kung fu for a little bit. I also learned European longsword fighting and fencing, but those are other weird things. So,
Very
um,
cool things, but in terms of of
yeah,
strength and durability of bone density,
yeah.
how long did it take you to get all the way up to 1,000 pounds?
Um, it's kind of crazy because like I've never like strongman has a bunch of different kinds of deadlifts, right? So if you look at like a standard deadlift off of the what's called off the floor, it's 9 inches off the floor, so about halfway up my shin.
Hmm.
Um, then there's like varying different ones. There's like a 14-inch pole. There's an 18-inch pole, which is what the silver dollar deadlift is. There's like a 22-inch pole, which is called the Viking deadlift. But like there's all these different kinds of deadlifts. So for me, I actually had no idea that I could pull that much because at that time, my max deadlift off the floor was about 600 pounds.
Hmm.
So, and this was 2022. So I started powerlifting in 2016. So that's 4 years plus two. So it's 6 years into lifting is how
Okay.
long it took.
Very
Yeah.
impressive. Very
Yeah.
impressive.
And I was in and out of the gym for about 2 years before I started powerlifting. So since about 2014, which means about 8 years roughly working out in the gym.
Okay, 8 years, and that's a
Yeah.
really dedicated and committed practice for someone who I'm going to like reiterate this as someone who considered themselves very, very weak and throughout from
Hmm.
the time that you were a child to have these health issues. I appreciate the level of not only physical strength but mental strength that it takes to be
Hmm.
able to have that faith in oneself, but also the commitment to see beyond who you knew yourself to be in the beginning. So I want to get into more questions around that mental durability, but before I move on to that, what is emotional lifting for you, and why do you say you don't want to do emotional lifting?
Okay, so inside of your body, the main thing that recruits strength muscle versus building muscle, not building muscle, but like for Shane, the difference between me and a bodybuilder goes and works the muscle. He works the size of the muscle. He works the pump. He feels the pump. He lets, he's looking for blood flow. He's looking for a great stretch in the muscle. I'm looking to recruit as much power as humanly possible in whatever way I need to in order to move the most weight. It's
Okay.
not about pump at all. So it's like the thing that makes you recruit strength is your nervous system. Now, the more engaged your nervous system is, the stronger you are as a human being, but your nervous system can be burnt out. So, things that burn out nervous systems is stress, overwork, lack of sleep, or extremely heavy lifting. So, like, there's guys who, like, let's say you go in the gym, okay? You take pre-workout or coffee or something. That heightens your nervous system, so it makes you a little bit stronger. Now, there's people who do like smelling salts, which you saw at the competition, right?
Mm.
That is a trigger. That triggers your nervous system. Okay, so your nervous system is a little bit higher, so you're a little bit stronger. Now, loud music. You got your pump up song, right? That's the thing that gets you feeling good and your blood's up and your heart's pumping. That's your nervous system a little bit higher. Okay. And then some guys, like I've had competitors who've been like, I need you to slap me full on man slap right in the face. That's another level of nervous system engagement.
Oh.
Now, the more of these, let's call them nervous system bricks, the more nervous system bricks you stack on top of each other, the stronger you can be. But then there is the toll that it takes on your system, which is generally burning you out faster. So if you are lifting like that all the time, like every single week, 4 to 5 times a week, you're lifting with this extremely heightened nervous system, you will notice that after about 5 or 6 weeks, you become extremely exhausted and you get burnt out, and then you can't sleep as well, you're not recovering, and then people start getting injured. Now,
Mm.
for me, I prefer to be in a very low state emotionally because what this does is it allows me to recover much faster, which means I can work harder. So if your nervous system's up here, you're not going to sleep well and you're not going to
Mm.
rest well and you're not going to be able to recover because sleep is when you recover. If you're breaking muscle down in the gym, and then what you eat, what you do away from the gym is what heals the muscle. So a lot of people once they bring up their nervous system and that stress level and that cortisol and all that stuff, it's very difficult for them to come down enough to go to bed. Most of my training sessions are in the evening. I worked for years and years and years a very very hard job that was very long hours where I woke up very early, so I could
Mm.
not take pre-workout. I did not want to get super amped up in the gym because it's like I finish this session, I take a shower, I go straight to bed. So
Mm.
like for all these reasons, I needed to lift in a state where I wasn't as emotional. And what that allows me to do is to be perfectly calm during my workouts for the most part. Like if you look at a lot of my old videos for PRs and stuff, I can hit them in dead silence for the most part. I don't need hype up. I don't need screaming. I don't need yelling. I just go into my little void. It's almost like a meditative state and everything outside of that can be burning and I'm perfectly calm inside that. I shouldn't say perfectly calm, but almost like a cold feeling, and I can amp it up. I can amp it up and like depending on what I need, but for day-to-day training, when I'm just doing my normal training, I would like to lift in a non-emotionally engaged state. So no extremely loud music. I don't need a lot of pre-workout. Most of the season I don't lift with pre-workout
Mm.
unless I'm like very exhausted and I've worked a 14-hour day. And what this allows me to do is keep my nervous system down low so I can recover faster. And when I need to ramp up my nervous system, I can do it much more effectively. And I've also taught myself breathing techniques so I can bring it back down. So, like, let's say when I'm competing, I can sit there and I can just use my breath. I bring my heart rate up. My nervous system starts to engage. I feel much, much more intense. I go out and do my lift. I come back. I breathe, I bring my system down, and I can rest. And what
Hmm.
that allows me to do is to be more energetic for the next event because a lot of people stay up there the whole day, and by the event 5 or 6, they're just dead.
Ah, that is very
Yeah,
cool. I did not realize, and I'm just kind of tuning in with my own stuff as well. Um, Something that made a lot of sense when you said that when your nervous system is high, you are able to lift heavier. I think
yeah,
about the when like mothers who are able to lift cars because their child is stuck underneath it. So that was the
yes.
first thing that came to mind when you said in a heightened state. However, over time that breaks down. That is
Mhm.
very interesting. I didn't know that, but it does make a
Yes,
lot of sense in terms of um, the ability for our body to be able to flood um, in a very basic sense, as someone who's very limited in the knowledge, but getting there, able to flood things to our body in a fight or flight state.
absolutely, yes.
Ah, and
And
so
it's
you,
also dangerous to lift in that state all the time because if you're constantly pushing so hard that you need to be in that state, your structure will break down and you'll get injured eventually. So,
structure meaning like your form and foundation?
yeah, well, your form firstly, and when your form breaks down, your chance of injury skyrockets. So, and then like yes, you might tear a muscle, but I'm more interested in keeping my attachment points that hold the muscles to the bones. That's where things get really sketchy.
And so tell me a little bit more about when you say you go into this almost void or cold state. I'm assuming this is something that you've practiced. Do you
Yes.
practice this, we'll call it the void state or the cold state, just in your own time, or is this something you strictly practice right before you lift or in the gym?
This has been something that's been perfected over many years. So I used to be one of those guys who, when I competed, I had to be like in a blind rage, basically, in order to lift the weights, in order to be somewhat competitive, because I just wasn't that strong.
Hmm.
And so, but at that point, obviously my form was breaking down because I'm so like blasted on this, just this the stress hormone, the nervous system engagement. Like I was so it was overreaching my brain. So like I couldn't focus as well as I needed to. I couldn't see sometimes. Like I was literally that mad. But I needed to be in order to lift the weights I needed to lift in order to be somewhat competitive. So what I found is over the years, I'm like, okay, well, I do a lot better if I'm in this cold state. Well, how do I engage my nervous system in this cold state? I'm like, okay, well, you almost find like a cold rage almost. It's not really, I think rage is maybe the wrong word for it because I'm not angry, but I'm intense. I'm very, very intense. And that void blocks everything. So like last year at Nationals is a perfect example. Something extremely traumatic literally happened the night before, and my whole life went to it just exploded. Everything that I've been planning just exploded. But I'm at Nationals, I need to compete. I'm literally in the back room warming up for these events, crying because my life in my personal life is falling apart. And then they're like, Tyson, you're up. So I go up. I wipe my tears. I snap into the system. The void is around me. I'm in this bubble. I walk up. I look at the ref. I'm like, hey, how many reps do I need? He says 15. I'm like, all right, sweet. I'm going to beat that. I strap into the car and I continue and I deadlift. So it's like, while I'm in that void, nothing can touch me. Nothing, I don't hear anything except for the ref, which is a trained thing because originally I couldn't hear or see the ref. And I realized I need to be able to see the ref and hear him because if he's
Hmm.
telling me, down or up, or you need to change this or do that, then, you obviously need to be able to pay attention. So that's been a trained thing. And like, I remember so many lifters when I was younger and I was first getting into competition, they were like, oh, somebody yelled something that distracted me. I'm like, I don't want to be distracted.
Hmm.
I want to be focused, And then people are like, oh, like, this thing that's going on in my personal life stopped me from being able to do this. And I was like, I don't want to have that excuse. Like,
Hmm.
I want to be able to be in this state, this meditative state where it's just me and the universe. Like literally, I'm just walking through like a purple and black sky. Like there's stars, there's fire. Like literally, I'm in this ball and it's just wrapped in fire, like just cold flame. And it's
Hmm.
just everything is so intense and like I look scary when I'm in this state. Like people have like I've seen photos of me in this state when I'm competing, and I look like I'm about to rip someone's head off. But it's like that is a cold and yet calculated and logical mindset where I can work things out, where I can still function and change my mind about things that if I need to, alter or lift a little bit or whatever to be more successful. But it's like that is a trained skill that I've cultivated over many, many years. I always say competing is a skill in itself. There's a lot of guys who are very strong in the gym
Hmm.
who on competition day they cannot bring that to bear because they're either nervous or they're anxious or they're not good at performing in front of people or they can't listen to the ref and listen to the commands or they forget because they're not in the right headspace. I'm coming on to my 34th or 35th competition now in strongman, and I've already competed 7 or 8 times in powerlifting as well. So it's like this is something I've cultivated over many, many, many years.
Hmm. Okay. I appreciate the ability to say when you mentioned that people get distracted, or even during a
Hmm.
time that was very, very intense, that you chose, and it seemed like there was a very distinct choice in that moment to funnel into your cold state. And so
Hmm.
do you have a particular set of breathing points that you would share with people that want to begin entering into that meditative state?
Yeah. I'm actually just getting emotional. I'm just thinking about it, but it's so earlier this week, I went into the gym to do some very, very heavy deadlifts. And this is one of the only times during my normal training that I allow myself to get into this headspace
Hmm.
because the weight is so much heavier than anything I've done before for reps. And so I'm like walking up to the bar. I'm like breathing in very, very slowly, very deeply.
Hmm.
I'm imagining a very, very intense scenario where I need to be strong. And then I think about some things that make me a little bit sad,
Hmm.
like very dark things, like things that are difficult, but not enough to screw me up. Because if I start crying, it's over. But it's
Hmm.
like I'm on the edge of tears, and then I'm like, here we go. The nervous system is engaged. My heart rate is up. I'm ready for this. I strap into the bar. I do my set and then I feel relief after I'm done. Basically, I put the bar down and I'm like, oh my gosh, I finally did this. I
Hmm.
reached this goal of hitting this many reps with this much weight. And then I actually had to walk away and cry because my nervous system was so heightened. And I felt
Hmm.
so much relief as I came down because I'm like, I've been worried about, nervous about this for so long. I'm like, I know I'm capable, but what if? I know I can do this,
Hmm.
but what if? And so I just put the what ifs aside and just did the work. And then I was able to go away and cry afterwards. But it's like I was so relieved and I was so happy. It was like on fire for the rest of the workout. I was just like smiling and laughing and just so pleased. But it's like I think being able to come down from that was obviously it's a learned skill, but it's like
Hmm.
everyone's going to have their own triggers. Some people have to get really angry. Some people have to get a little bit sad. Some people don't even have anything. They're just like, oh, well, we're just going to do this anyway. So
Hmm.
Um, I think for me, I'm generally very well fueled by joy, but it's like there are certain times where I feel I need to grab deep into that dark zone.
Hmm. Hmm. And when you this level of breathing, because you mentioned before that you had a highly intelligent coach beside you, did this coach
Yes.
also teach you this kind of framework and this level of the zone? We'll call it the zone. Did he or
Yeah.
she teach you how to get into the zone prior to an intense lift?
No. So he suggested it because a lot of guys who do very intensive strength training or competing, a lot of guys find that they find their trigger, they find the thing they need, so whether it's the song or whether it's somebody hitting them in the back or
Hmm.
whatever it is. Everybody has their thing, right? And for my coach, when he was competing more often, he was almost entirely like fueled by rage. So he like myself has had a very 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 difficult life, which it's very funny when you look at people who compete in strongman because most of them are really come from extremely horrible backgrounds.
Hmm.
And so he had a very difficult life, and things have continued to be difficult throughout his life, same as myself. And so for him, it's usually rage that fuels him when he's competing. It's very rare that he competes joyfully.
Okay.
And like for me on competition day, I'm strutting around, I'm smiling, I'm laughing, I'm shooting the shit with the boys and everything, and just having a good time. And then when I go to compete, They're like, Tyson, you're up to the floor. I'm like, snap, I'm into the void. For him, he's in that dark state all day. He needs to be there.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he separates himself from the other people. He's away. He tells his clients beforehand, "Hey guys, it's game day today. I'm not going to be happy, cheery coach. I'm going to be the athlete that I'm here to kill people." Like
Okay.
that's the mindset he needs to be in. And so everyone's a little different, right?
Hmm.
Um, he performs well in that state. I perform well in my state. Usually, if my life is good or bad, I can perform very well. For him, if his life is very good, he's like, it's hard for me to get in that state. He's like, it's hard for him unless things are really bad. It's hard for him to be in that state.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So for him, it's unique for everybody. The void or the zone or whatever it is unique for everybody. Some people need to be extremely angry. Some people need to be extremely sad. For me, I can lock into it either way.
Okay. And again,
Yeah.
well, you mentioned like years of training and being able
Yes.
to just hone in on that at a snap. And is this
Yeah.
something that you do on your own, or did you have a coach to help train you like to get into the zone?
Yeah. Some of it was desperation, to be honest.
Hmm.
Yeah, so when I started powerlifting, I did about 7 or 8 powerlifting competitions, right? And I was about 3 years into powerlifting when I went to a show, and I'm like, my max deadlift was about 455. My max squat was about 415 or 420. My max bench, I think, was about 280, which are good numbers when you look at it that way, right? Well, there was a kid that had been training for about 6 months. He was, I think, 16 years old, and he came in and he beat all my lifts by over 100 pounds.
Wow.
I'm like, I need to do something to get better because there are people out here who are so genetically gifted they can wipe the floor with me without even trying.
Hmm.
Like, and it's like that kid specifically was one of the major factors that drove me towards I need to be more intelligent. I need to train more intelligently. I need to prepare myself more intelligently. I need to play the long game. I need to be here in a better state, better than these guys in 10 years. Like I need to take my time and get strong because I'm not that strong right now. And I'm training as hard as humanly possible at this point, and I'm so far behind almost everybody else.
Hmm.
So excuse me, for me, the void was something I was trying to find throughout all these years so that I could lock into that extra nervous system engagement on game day. And it is something that I practiced at home. It is something that, like, even I'll slip into it sometimes if I'm imagining, because, like, I like to visualize beforehand. So, like, Nationals is in 2 weeks. Ever since I started prep about 5 or 6 weeks ago, I've been imagining myself going to every event and winning every single event. I've been imagining myself at the top of the podium holding up the gold medal, the first place medal. And this is something I do before every competition. Whether I have any business winning it or not, it doesn't matter. As soon as prep starts, I decide I'm going to win the show, and that's the only thing I focus on.
Hmm.
So during these reminiscences where I'm going through all the steps of winning each and every event, I start to slip into that void and I need to like bring myself down. And I'm like, okay, whew, everything's good. Calm down. Don't go there. We don't need to be in this heightened state of, this nervous system engagement. Well, it's, 10 o'clock and I'm at work, you know,
Hmm.
it's like,
Hmm.
but this is all part of the mental game, right? So it's like, now I've got it where I can slip in and out pretty easily. It's very smooth. It's very fluid. I can turn it on. I can turn it off. When I was first figuring it out, it took me a very, very long time to get into the headspace. I needed the music. I needed the smelling salts. I needed someone to hit me. Now it's like I know what I need to perform in every different event. I know how much of the void I can kind of succumb to. I know how much of my brain I need to keep online. There's a lot of different things. It seems the dumber you are, the stronger you are. So, but for certain events, because strongman is a very skill-based thing,
Hmm.
there's a lot of strength skill involved. You need to keep your brain engaged. So you can't just go into a
Hmm.
blind range and just figure it out.
Mm, I do appreciate that that there is a level of intelligence that comes into it, and also that there seems to be a kind of progression as well, since you mentioned before that maybe in the earlier years of your competition, the music or the smelling salts or like the slap on the back really helped, and now you've come
Mhm.
to a place because of the level of like you put yourself in the ring, like you took yourself off the bench and onto the playing field over and over and over again, that now there is this level of foundation that you've created for yourself where you're like, I know what
Yeah.
I need to do because I've been around the block once or twice or 1,000 times. And
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit more about the level of recovery that it takes to do something like this and what you do just on a daily basis. That because you
Hmm.
mentioned before this level of heightened nervous system activity that some people
Yeah.
may find themselves in, or maybe they don't really realize they're actually into it. But what do you do on a daily basis that helps you maintain the level of consistency that you want to do, whether or not you're prepping for nationals or not? But what do you do to help you just, live your best life every day where you're not in pain and sore and just like living your best life?
Well, firstly, I think not living your life in pain or sore is kind of a joke. Because either you're in pain and you're sore because you're old and out of shape, or
Mm.
you're in pain and you're sore because you're actively building a stronger body. So take your pick. That's the first one. One of my favorite sayings was, "When you get old, your back is going to hurt anyway. Is it going to be hurt because you didn't look after yourself, or is it going to be hurt because you're in the gym?"
Hmm.
So, but there's a difference between muscle sore and I'm just in bad shape sore. So there's that. Firstly, so I'm sore every single day. I'll firstly say
Okay.
that. I'm in a lot of muscular pain, but it's joyfully endured because I'm rebuilding my body, I'm breaking it down and building it back stronger. On a day-to-day basis, I think some of the most important things to do is firstly to get up and walk. A lot of people are very sedentary in our day-to-day life. Luckily, both of the jobs that I engage in require me to walk an awful lot. And during times when I'm not doing those jobs, I take my dog out for walks and runs quite often, and I try to hike a lot, and I try to get in extra steps at the gym on the Stairmaster or something like that. So, walking is important. Firstly, because it boosts your metabolism, which is very good for your digestive system. But secondly, because it keeps your hips healthy. Now, if your hips are healthy, your back is usually going to be healthy. On
Hmm.
top of this, I also have videos on YouTube showing my low back and hip relaxation routine, which is basically just a bunch of yoga that I do on a daily basis. I generally spend 10 to 15 minutes per day doing yoga in order to have healthy hips and back.
Hmm.
Now, those things are obviously great things, but if you want to go further with it, I also have several things I do for like deeper tissue work. So like I have lacrosse balls that I work with on, specifically deep, thick muscular areas to kind of release tension. I see a deep tissue massage therapist every 2 weeks, which is very expensive because I don't have benefits.
Hmm.
And to me, I'm investing in my body. This is a long-term investment. It's called Tyson Coin, and this is the stock that I'm investing in for the next several years so that I have a great future. Um,
Hmm.
money, money is not wealth. Health is wealth.
Hmm.
So this
Hmm.
is an investment that I'm making. I also eat very well, and I've worked really, really, really hard to have a very healthy gut biome so that the very large amount of food that I eat is digested properly so that my body recovers. And I take a lot of vitamins that are specifically wrapped around trying to help my nutrients that I'm eating to go into the bloodstream, into the muscles, into the bones, and help recover my body. So your diet, your active recovery with stretching, massage therapy, daily trying to stay calm and trying to avoid high stress situations. And sleep is very important. I'm really bad at sleep, but I'm trying to get better. With that, I suggest people take a lot of magnesium and a lot of L-theanine, which helps them relax at the end of the day. Um, and a perfect example of the difference, depending on like I was talking about that heightened nervous system. So last year I was making some bad decisions with people and had some folks involved in my life who were causing a tremendous amount of stress, specifically one person, and that was my own foolish fault for allowing that person to have so much control and damage done to my life. But I was in such a heightened stress state all the time that my body wasn't recovering. I couldn't put on weight. I
Hmm.
was much thinner than I needed to be to be competitive in my weight class, and I wasn't really gaining a lot of strength. Now, I removed that person from my life, and within a month, I put on 20 pounds, which was good weight. I wanted to put on that 20 pounds, and I got exponentially stronger, like close to 30% stronger in almost all ways, and then much, much stronger than that in other ways.
Hmm.
My lifts went through the roof. My recovery was much better. So if you are experiencing stress and anxiety on a day-to-day basis, like a high level of it, you need to remove that person, that thing, that lifestyle, that job, whatever it is,
Hmm.
because if it's doing that much to me and I'm like a pro athlete and I'm doing all these other things to be very, very healthy, if it's doing that much damage to me, imagine what it's doing to the average person. Stress is poison.
Hmm. Mm. Yeah, I definitely I see the value in the way that you not only take care of your physical health but the mental health as well. And I think it takes a
Yes.
lot of mental strength to be able to recognize where we take ourselves out of the victim mode and say, "Yo, I'm allowing this right now." And
Hmm.
to be able to recognize where people may no longer be a match for the person that you want to be, then it can take a lot of strength to be able to say, you know what, like, love you, but I'm gonna leave you, and I'm gonna put this aside to focus on yourself and to really see the
Hmm.
value in taking care of your social well-being as well as your mental health. So thank you very much for bringing that up as well, because I think that for people who just want to be healthier in their daily lives, and I think that there's definitely a lot of people are going to be inspired by the level of commitment and discipline and love and faith that you put into being a strong man competitor, but also just a man in his daily life who sees the long term benefits in what he does. So thank you again for bringing up the level of respect that one needs to have, not only in recovery in the gym for taking care of your physical health and what you're putting inside of it, but also social well-being and who you choose to surround yourself with. Before we go today, I want to know a little bit more about who continues to inspire you to lift heavier and to continue to aspire to be more than who you are today, because you're already a very impressive individual. But as someone who continues to push the boundaries and limits of what people believe is possible, who inspires you to continue to do that? Or is there anyone that you look up to, or any practices you look up to that continue to feed that faith and starve that fear?
Hmm. I think this is a really good question, and it's very similar to the question I had a person asked, like, "Who's your favorite strongman?" And I said, "Me."
Mm,
And so they're like, "Who's your biggest inspiration?" I'm like, "Me," but the next me. Like, there's an anime called Dragon Ball Z, and I find it to be very, very inspirational because they're like, "Here's a great challenge. We need to train and eat and sleep and rest and recover and learn until we can overcome this challenge." Okay, well, we've leveled up as a person and now we've beaten this challenge. Here's a new challenge. We need to train and eat and sleep and learn so we can overcome this challenge. So, like, for me, I think my greatest inspiration is seeing how far I've come and knowing that I'm going to go so much further.
mm,
This last March, March of 2025, I went to a world championship called the Arnold Classic, and I placed 11th in the world in my weight class. What inspires me is knowing I can do so much better,
mm,
knowing I can be top 10 material, knowing I can be top five material, knowing I can be a world champion someday.
mm,
That's what inspires me to continue. I would love to say that I have like some great role model in front of me who's helping, and in some ways I do. Like, my parents aren't lifters, but they're extremely wonderful people. They've inspired me to do a lot of great things. They've really set me up to be mentally incredibly durable and very stubborn. And I have a lot of the things I do is inspired by them, but this specific journey of lifting weights and being the strongest man on earth, which is my goal, is very largely inspired by myself.
mm, mm. I I appreciate that. To be inspired by yourself, but also the next level version of you, knowing that we're always on a continuous journey of self-improvement. And I think
Yes.
it takes a certain kind of person to be able to see all the failures that one has, but see them less as failures and more as feedback. And so, for the
Yes.
people who are maybe struggling in their ability to have that faith and maybe are in the midst of a tremendous amount of failure and they're not sure what's next, what sort of takeaway do you have for them for continuing to be even better than who they are and continuing to see the person that they could be, even though they're not there yet?
Mhm. This is actually a really good question because this is something that I was kind of struggling with earlier this year. And last year, due to the life that I was living and the very bad decisions I was making, I was in not a very good headspace. I was in a terrible, terrible, terrible headspace. And when I came out of that, I was like, what do I do? Like everything's fallen apart. Like everything that I had planned is gone, and everything that I wanted is gone. Like, what do I do? Like, and the biggest inspiration I can say, or not inspiration, but the biggest advice I can give is get up, put one foot in front of the other,
Mm.
focus on self-improvement, focus on you alone. Like I literally just hid in my house. I hid in my house. I quit my job for a little while. I just focused on just coaching. I focused on just, for income at least. And, I worked some odd jobs here and there, but I took probably like a solid month and a half. And I
Mm.
just focused on me. And I slept a lot, which was something that I needed to do because I was so burnt out. But I focused on learning. Like I probably consumed a couple hundred hours of mental health self-learning seminars, YouTube videos, books, like a couple hundred hours of this. I hired a therapist and worked through a lot of stuff. I went into debt to hire this therapist, by the way, for people who are saying I don't have the money for this. Um, I did an awful lot of soul searching and it was like, hey, where do I really want to go with my life? I have limited time, I have limited energy, I have limited resources. Where do I really want to go with my life? Like if you are hitting a wall in life, whether it's family, friends, whether you're competing, whether you're not competing, whether it's work, the best thing I can say is put one foot in front of the other. Don't give up. Don't quit. If you're at rock bottom, good. That is the best place to be because the only direction to go is up.
Mm.
All you need to do is put one foot in front of the other, eat 3 meals a day, go to bed, wake up, set at least 2 or 3 goals, hopefully more like five, and make them achievable. Get used to winning again, or rebuild who you are, or build a new version of yourself that's better. It
Mm.
will be extremely hard. Most days, depending on how bad the depression is, like where I was, this probably January last year, I was not January, earlier than that, more like October, November. I felt like I was on fire. Like I was in such a deep state of depression and sadness. My skin might have well been on fire, and I was in so much depression that I felt like I was walking through waist deep mud on a day-to-day basis. And one foot in front of the other. It doesn't have to be a big step.
Mm.
And every time you get knocked down by life, get back up
Mm.
and don't quit. I believe that anybody can do anything they put their mind to. If you truly want to work hard and make something happen, it will happen.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, 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 yeah. Cheers to that. I so appreciate and thank you so much for being vulnerable in that. Thank you for being very
Yeah,
inspirational in that. And for anyone else who's looking to gain some inspiration, especially when you're saying to be able to work with your mental health as well, it'll take a lot. But I appreciate
yeah,
the level of commitment that you have for mind, body, physical, social connection, and well-being. So thank you so
yeah,
much, Tyson, for taking this time to chat with us, for being able to, I know, inspire many, many people who are listening to this, and for
yeah.
people who would love to be in touch with you more, who want to know even more about you. I'm gonna link everywhere that they can find in the description, but where else can they find you and reach out to you if they want to just be like, yo, Tyson, you're amazing. You're the best. You have the best dump truck booty. Like, how can I connect with you more?
I'm primarily most active on Instagram, but I have like a small YouTube presence that I'm trying to work on building. But yeah, like if you want to reach out to me and ask about, anything, whether it's weightlifting or life or mental health or, you have issues going on or you just want to talk, reach out on Instagram, man. Like I'm very receptive to people, especially new people, like reaching out and like seeing what's up. But yeah, my Instagram is Little Big Thunder 94. My YouTube is Tyson R Delay. So like, just reach out. Yeah, I'll be there.
Heck yeah, he will be there. Tyson, again, thank you so much for just all of the goodness and the well-being and the awesome energy that you bring to this. And thank you all for listening today, for being a part of the inspiring new world that we are becoming. And I know that there's someone out there who will probably want to beat your 1,008 deadlift one day, but before we
Mhm.
go, what's your next record? Do you have a next goal for what you want to break even more?
Oh yeah. So firstly, I'm set to try and re-break the world's silver dollar deadlift record at the Animal Cage at the Arnold Classic this year, or next year, I guess, 2016 or 2026. But it's in March, and my plan is to compete at the Arnold Classic, try and crack into that top 10 placing, and then once that's over and I'm done competing there, I'm going to go over to the Animal Cage and I'm going to break the world record.
Yeah, you.
And I'm my plan is to break it by a lot. I'm hoping for 1,100 pounds or more. And another world record I have my sights set on is breaking the Atlas Stone world record lift, which another friend of mine in Quebec is looking to do the same lift. So him and I want to connect, get together, get the authorities involved so we can make it legit. And then we're going to weigh in and break the middleweight world record for the Atlas Stone.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
Yeah,
Yo, it is already done, and I am looking forward to seeing that in action.
nice. Thank you.
And thank you guys all so much for tuning in today. I trust, hope, and expect that you all have yourselves a super duper delightful and wonderful day. And we'll look forward to talking with you. I'm sure Tyson will be on here again, but I'll look forward to talking with you guys real soon. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all for joining me today because it has been my absolute pleasure to be here with you. Make sure to give this podcast a 5-star review and share it with all your loved ones because it helps in creating even more awesome content. If you're interested in learning how to effortlessly create even more health, vitality, and time and money freedom, sign up for my free monthly vision workshop live over Zoom. Until then, I hope you all have a powerful day, and I look forward to chatting with you all real soon.